As you guys make your way into Truth Will Set You Free, please keep sharing the page. Go ahead and share the episode as we're about to get started. We are just about a minute and a half away from Aaron Smalls, Curtis Harkness, and Anthony Russo talking about today's topics for Truth Will Set You Free on Truth Will Set You Free Tuesday, installment number 10. Share, 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 and then hopefully we can get Cash out of the pool with his children to hop on the show. Once you guys start making your way in, go ahead and let us know where you're from in the chat box. Go ahead and throw it in the comments. Let us know where you're from. We'll do a quick hello at the beginning, and then we'll get started with Truth Will Set You Free in less than 1 minute. Today, we're going to be talking about COVID-19 issues up at the top of the episode, talking about how it does relate in terms of schooling and race and socioeconomic issues, as well as moving then to some of the police shootings across the country and the girl in McAllen posting on Facebook or posting on Instagram, I believe. And then we might even talk a little bit about the defunding proposition by the city council in Seattle for the police department. So a lot of topics today involving anything from the pandemic all the way to race. So we'll get started in just about 30 seconds. Keep sharing the page. Hello, everybody coming on in. Truth Will Set You Free. We'll start in 20 seconds. Fantastic. Hello, everybody. My name is Anthony Michael Russo from BetheChange, founder of BetheChange. This is Truth Will Set You Free. Am I the only one hearing an echo? Only one. Okay, then I'll keep going. Cool. All right, fantastic. Well, this is Truth Will Set You Free. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We got a bunch of stuff going on here today. Obviously, news is continuously a divisive topic, and specifically, we are going to be talking about things like COVID, as well as the scare tactics that are out there. A little bit of truth, a little bit of ways of looking at it, ways of talking to other people, and possibly having a conversation, because that's the whole point, is how to have an open conversation here on Truth Will Set You Free. We're going to talk a little bit about the defunding the police in Seattle, as well as some of the police shootings and police officers getting shot across the country, and how difficult that is for people to be able to have that discussion or even talk about their family members that have that. Again, BetheChange's purpose is to allow people to have a conversation and actually learn from each other. We're not the end-all be-all of news, but we're allowing people to have a conversation and learn a little bit of what the media doesn't tell you. So I've got two other fantastic hosts on the show with me. Hopefully Cash will be coming up in just a little bit. We got Curtis and Aaron Smalls. Curtis, go ahead and introduce yourself real fast here on Truth Will Set You Free. Curtis, you are muted. You are definitely muted.
Check. Can you hear me?
There we go.
I was just making sure. I know you don't like the ASMR, so no. But no, I'm happy to be here. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. I hope it's beautiful where you are. If it's not, I hope you are feeling beautiful. I'm ready to go.
And Aaron Smalls, the man, the myth, the legend that actually put this whole idea together of having an open conversation in an open format. How you doing, buddy? You got a suit on today. I like it.
Doing well, feeling good. You know, I had to get myself sparked up, motivated, because I've been watching that show Kingdom, the American television version of it, and it got me really amped up. So I started doing this 6-week cut, and with a 6-week cut, you kind of go into this like caloric deficit. So I've been a little on the sleepy side, and so I had to put a suit on to get energized, get feeling good, ready to roll for.
Gotta set the tone with that suit, baby.
Yeah.
Somehow.
So I'm on the 6-day cut, which the 6-day cut is you watch all of the episodes of that show all at once. I was talking about it on Biscuits and Gravy, and I am so ridiculously addicted. I started well behind you, and I only have 3 episodes left. So there it is. Great show. And now you just told me there's a European version, which scares me. Let's say hello to everybody in the box. We've got Melanie. Paula Davis, hello, Paula. Missouri Streetlight, I love it. Maryland Cricket Whipple. If I don't say all your names, I apologize. Abby Jennings, Connie Richter, Karen Taylor. Melanie's very excited about Cash and Swim Trunks. That's awkward. Cindy, Stephanie. Awkward. Kashina, Paula Davis again. Let's see. Patty, there's a lot of people. Anybody I'm missing? Beth, Leslie, Donna, hello. Rhonda. Hello, Rhonda. Brandy, how's it going? Yeah, a lot of people. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to get started. First thing I want to talk about is COVID is a bad illness. There is no doubt that it is dangerous, and I know we all have. Curtis actually, I know, has direct contact with specialists in certain areas. Here's the deal.
Not with COVID. Not with COVID.
Not with COVID.
Know what it is.
Know what it is. Correct. Yes. So I actually have, and this is coming from somebody that believes that there's only so much we could do as a public. And the scare tactics that come out are terrifying because what it does is it ends conversation. It creates people to be the super anti-maskers, and it creates people to be the doomsdayers that won't leave their house and yell at people that aren't wearing a mask. So there's a post that came out that I'm going to go ahead and throw up on the screen that I have been, this is my public enemy number 1 of the week, and I want you guys to look at it. I'm going to read it real fast as I can through, because it makes me want to stab my eyes out. So this is an article by Franklin Vo. The reason I say Franklin Vo is that that's going to matter later. This has been shared over 1 million times. Sorry that you're blocked out, Aaron. I apologize, but you look good behind it. So how can a disease with 1% mortality shut down the United States? There's 2 problems with this question. It neglects the large numbers, and it assumes one of 2 things will happen. You'll die or you'll be 100% fine. The U.S. population of 328 million. If 1% of the population dies, that's 3.3 million people dead. 3 million people dead would monkey wrench the economy no matter what. That more than doubles the number of annual deaths all at once. The second bit is people keep talking about deaths. Only 1% die. Just 1%. 1 is a small number. No big deal, right? But what about the people who survive? For every person who dies, 19 more require hospitalization. 18 of those will have permanent heart damage for the rest of their lives. 10 will have permanent lung damage. 3 will have strokes. 2 will have neurological damage. Everybody that might be wondering how much I'm reading or why I'm reading this, please stick around because there is a purpose to everything that I'm saying. 3 will have strokes. 2 will have neurological damage that leads to chronic weakness and coordination. 2 will have neurological damage that leads to loss of cognitive function. 3.3 million people dead. So this is what this means. If it's only 1% fatal, 3.3 million people dead, 62.4 million hospitalized, 59 million people with permanent heart damage, 32.8 million people with permanent lung damage, 9.8 million with stroke, 6.5 million with muscle weakness, 6.5 million people with loss of cognitive function. And that's the thing that the folks keep going on about. Only 1% dead? What's the big deal? I don't get it. The choice is not ruin the economy, save 1%. If we reopen the economy, it will be destroyed anyways. The U.S. economy cannot survive everyone getting COVID-19. Oop, wrong graphic. Here you go, guys. So, what's interesting about that post is there is 0% fact in what was posted. Is this a serious illness? I have a whole family of young folks that are my friends that have COVID-19. It's very serious. They're in hell right now. We've got one of our close friends, Frank, who just got put back on a ventilator. There is no doubt that I understand how serious COVID-19 is and how all of us on this show understand. But to post stuff like that is blasphemy. Why is all that not true? Franklin Vo is a Quora writer that just so happened to write this scare piece. He's got no backup knowledge in physical education, physical history, doctoral education, and it's being shared by nurses and doctors because it fits an agenda. That's scary. All of the statistics that he put in were very, very well researched. By being well researched, he researched every epidemic, and you could tell people, and why I'm saying this is important, when you see this post out there, which you will, because it's all over the place, be nice, first off, when you reply and just say, unfortunately, it's not correct. He took every pandemic and epidemic in history, how they affected human beings after the epidemic and pandemic, and gave the worst case scenario of all of them and put them into one document that's now been shared well over 10 million times on social media. That's dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Needless to say, that has been my public enemy number one this week because it's just factually not right. So you see people that actually do the research and realize it's false. Might I add also, Franklin Vo not only is a complete wackadoo nut job, he writes about 5 core articles a day, lives in a basement it appears, he wears bunny ears on his serious posts, he's got a whole bunch of cats, which, hey, I love cats. It's fine. However, he also is considered a polyamorous expert on polyamorous living, and 6 of his polyamorous relationships are now leading to abuse charges. This is a man that is now being shared by medical professionals, and we wonder why we have to do our own research. Who wants to go first on this fun one?
All I heard was polyamorous.
That's a big word.
That's a big word.
Oh, man.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I mean, it's the internet. That's what's gonna happen. I mean, there's so much information now that you just don't know where to get the information. I mean, that's the bottom line of it. I mean, between the media and social media, we're just so screwed. I mean, there's just the amount of work that we have to do now to find the actual truth for these things that are happening. It's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. I've sufficiently cut back on my media watching and my social mediaing because it's just at the point where there's like 2 to 3 stories, and I get more excited. Mm-hmm. I get more excited when I see stories about like the NBA players at Disney wanting to either bring girls back to the room or go out to the food. I'm like, now we got a story. Now let's get into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, fear has always run the world, and from bullying to economies, I mean, fear is that thing, and unless you do your own research and you empower yourself, there's just no way around it. It's gonna be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Curtis, I know you and I talk a lot about COVID, and you've always had some, pretty good insight. Obviously, I just explained why this is false. I've also explained it on people's walls. But might I add one other thing before I go to you? I've reported, every time I see it, I report it to Facebook as fake news or false information. It has not, one person took it down when I explained it to her, and she's like, oh, snap. Everybody else left it up and actually always deleted my comments, which I find hilarious. Facebook won't take this down, yet they will take any bit, and this is making me sound a little bit more conservative than I really am, anything that is slightly questionable on the conservative side, it's gone in an instant. This is absolutely fake news. They will not remove it, and it boggles my mind.
Well, I mean, I don't know of anything conservative, because there's a lot of that whole boycott Facebook is a bunch of people that aren't conservative going against other things. So I don't get into that too much, because at the same time I go, it's their page, they can share it, right? I would love for people to do their own research. Again, like First Amendment, right? Freedom of speech. And who am I to jump on there? And of course, do I see a lot of misinformation? Yes. What I try to do is on my own page, hey people, this is fake, this is false, or like you do, I reach out to the person. But after that, it's like, it's up to that person, unfortunately. And with all this going on, with everything going on with the COVID, what a lot of people tend to forget, that a lot of researchers, a lot of scientists and government officials from all over the world, this is new to them. I'll say some of them. But they don't know everything right away. So they're coming out with guidelines, CDC, WHO, and a lot of people see now it's wrong. Now it's wrong. They jump on that. Oh, they're wrong. These are scientists. And I don't know if whoever tuned into the Real Men Speak, I said a quote about intelligence and the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And that's what scientists do. And a lot of people take what scientists say as fact and run, and then don't come back when they get upgraded or they change something. They said this. Well, it's science. Science will change. At one point, the world was flat. Now it's round. Some people still think it's flat. Some people don't think we're going to space. Some people don't think all these different things, right? But at some point, you have to realize that science is going to update itself at some point. That's just what it is, because they're going to find more. They're going to get better technology to see farther, see smaller, in everything. So what I tell people is, when you're looking at this, and like we say, do your own research, do it with a grain of salt and say, okay, this is what it is today. Potentially it might change. Let me do my best to arm myself with what I can see as truth, because every truth can be false to some, and some people see it as truth, right? It's a subjective truth. But what I tell people for what's going on with the virus, right? It's not, science is now showing it's not just respiratory. We know that for sure. It is a inflammatory disease that is based on inflammation, right? And so there are other things outside of just getting on a ventilator. And that's why more people are living, because they now know how to better treat this disease. They don't know how to treat it very well, but they are understanding it better. There are some neurological things, because inflammation goes into everything. And that's why I tell people the best way for life, period, outside of just COVID, almost every other disease, is inflammation, right? And so if you live on and this is where I love Anthony's mom, an anti-inflammation diet. Whoa. Yo, we go to brunch every time I go to Dallas.
You respect my mom. You respect my mom.
No, we go to brunch every time I come to Dallas. No, but an anti-inflammation diet, just try to be healthy, and you limit a lot of sugar and limit a lot of things that are fake, just like news, right? If you can limit that in your news and what you take in, and also what you eat, your mental and your body will be better. And that's what I tell people to do, is focus on how you can be safe, keep your people safe. And you can't control if somebody's wearing a mask or not. Even if you believe in not wearing a mask, this is America. You don't have to wear it at home. You don't have to do whatever you want at home. But let's just respect people in public, in their own places where they own. Because if I have a business, I want you to follow rules of my business. But like with the news, with this piece, I don't. You got to do your own research. And I'm glad that you did it, Anthony, and went through it and are able to talk about that, because it is a lot of problems. But at the same time, this is, I can see, as fear baiting.
Yeah. And I think we're going to be going through a lot of this, because that was the other thing. The one girl that actually took it down, that I had it with, she goes, but this Vox article, and she showed another Vox article, which also tends to be pretty left-leaning, and she goes, but this article says the same. And I'm like, did you read the article? Because it literally essentially slams that other piece without saying it. It says, we don't know what the long-term effects are, so it is dangerous. And there's a lot of medical professionals that, if you're watching everything, not just YouTube, not whatever, we don't know what's going to happen in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 months. We have no idea. And if some people believe in herd immunity, or if some people believe in the concept of the vaccine, if it's a flu type vaccine, because that's essentially a coronavirus, it's a flu type strain, it's not going to have that full of an effect. We might be living with some kind of COVID like this for the rest of time. So ultimately, this is a huge wake up call to unhealthy people, because there is something to be said about health that is said by anyone from Dr. Fauci all the way to the ultra right. So you got left, right, middle, every ground. Fauci's somewhere in the middle. But ultimately, we have to start taking care of our bodies. That's one important thing, because this isn't going to change. And herd immunity, they're thinking that it might actually have an effect. So people are confused about what to think. Here's the deal. This is the way that I'm going to break it down, and it's going to take a little bit about what Curtis said, a little bit of what Aaron said. Since we don't know, let's be smart. The mask thing, the issue with the mask is there is some people that will come up with why it's unhealthy and all that stuff, but ultimately, the common sense reason why it's dangerous is because people think that is a full body condom. It's not going to protect you from everything.
I mean, they don't protect you from everything.
Yeah. Watch it. So here's the deal. So all these different things that we can do, we have to do all at once. As long as it allows us to go back to work, back to school, we're going to have to mitigate it as possible. Otherwise, if we're knowing that we're probably going to be living with this forever, we have to actually be smart and do the best we can. And again, some of these numbers are swear jar are bullshit. There's bullshit coming on a lot of different sides to find the right statistics in terms of the amount of COVID deaths. It's like, why is it? And this is a media response. And I kind of want to hear Aaron's concept on this, because I like the way that you always explain the media. The media will find is cases were plateauing. They started showing all the mortalities and fatalities. And now they're showing all the cases, which I'm learning that in some places that if you test yourself 3 times, you're actually getting tested you're actually having 3 different tests that are showing positive. So the numbers are a hair inflated. At the same time, you've now got these you've got the fatalities that now list I've looked at every specialist, White House to regular doctor to expert on CNN to Fox will say that if somebody dies with COVID-19, it's a COVID-19 fatality. So those numbers don't make a ton of sense either. But the media is specifically showing whatever is going to poke that kind of scare tactic, much like that article. So how can people avoid that media response, Aaron?
If we stopped talking about something, what would happen? And I saw it scroll through the comments, and I was like, I bet you know what's going to happen sometime around November 6th. And I mean, I can't say that person was wrong.
They're not. I can't imagine that they are.
It's tough, you know. I mean, I'm being cautious because I enjoy my life and I enjoy hanging out with friends and family, and I can wait a little while to see what happens with this so that I don't affect them. But again, it's like the media is going to give you what you want. And this is why I say they're going to give you what you want, because I've said it in past episodes. We enjoy the chaos. There's something about it that we like, that we enjoy. And I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know the terminology for what it's actually called, but it's the same reason why we watch reality shows, why we like the drama, because we enjoy somewhat of the chaos. And that's what the media is giving us right now. And the second they stop talking about it, things will somehow probably magically get back to the quote normal that everyone has been asking about. Yeah, there it is.
Exactly. It's if you want us to say it, Sarah, it's one of those issues, as we said, it'll go away once we stop talking about it. Is this worse than the flu? Yes, it's worse than the flu. Is it something we might have to deal with like the flu? Yes. Is it going to be that big of a deal after the election? Probably not. It's not. This is a partisan issue through and through, and if people want to know how to get rid of it, unfortunately, you either ignore all the social media posting and the Facebook news and the television news, and you just move past it and you try to ignore the conversation and just be good to each other. So I bring up the masks in terms of this. There's that whole purpose, and I've had this discussion.
Really quick. CDC does have provisional death statistics, and they do list what deaths are not from COVID, and then they do have explanation of what is COVID involved, what's not COVID involved, like that.
Correct.
So
do you want to know?
Doing a good job of their best they can.
Well, do you know what it actually says? Because I took a picture of this earlier so that I could talk about it if it came up. CDC, there is, and this is for any case, not just COVID deaths. This is to have the cases. A person meeting the clinical criteria and epidemiologic, thank you, evidence with no confirmed laboratory testing performed for COVID-19, a person meeting presumptive laboratory evidence or clinical criteria, a person meeting vital records criteria with no confirmatory laboratory testing performed with COVID-19, which means essentially if they meet 2 of these items, 2 of the following symptoms: fever, chills, rigors, myalgia, headache, sore throat, new olfactory, which is the sense of smell, and taste disorder. If they meet 2 of the following, it counts. Or 1 of the following symptoms: cough, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, or severe respiratory illness with at least 1 of the following clinical reaction or a possible pneumonia. So ultimately, they can categorize anybody that has any of these things as a case and also as a death, which is going to lead to obviously some incorrect numbers. It's a huge estimates game. And also,
they also say it's an estimate, and they also have on here that shows, again, involving pneumonia without COVID tests, and then they have it said involving COVID and pneumonia. So I see what you're saying with how they're reporting it, the news. They're not saying that. They're not saying, well,
no, they're just
could be pneumonia,
right?
And some of these aren't. The media is just taking it and running with it,
right? So the only way to get real information, again, is to see the stories that interest you, and then do about an hour of research. It's a pain in the ass. There's a question about
or fingers.
In the figures. Question about they magically disappear at the protest. I want to talk about that in a second before we get there. But then this is one statement to the non-mask wearing people. If this group and a lot of the people that watch this are talking about togetherness, unity, being a streetlight, being the change they want to see in the world, when people argue with me that I'm trying to provide a counterpoint of wear a mask, it's not that big of a deal, and people drop the whole it's my freedoms. It's taking your freedoms away. First they're going to take your freedom, then they're going to take your guns. Okay, there is a huge step between wearing a face mask and walking in my house and taking my 380 and my 9mm that I have in that room right there. I get how that'll weigh on your mind, but all you're doing is making other people super, super frustrated. So you're making the far mask wearers more frustrated, and you're making the non-mask wearers have more of a rallying cry. Don't do that. Just, if you're part of this group, if you're watching this show, that's the one favor I've asked. If somebody tells you to put a mask on, just wear it, and don't. It's not a freedom issue. It's really not.
It's like when I moved to New York. I didn't want to move to New York because I don't like the cold. But then I moved to New York, and I realized, yes, it's cold, but it allows me to up my fashion game in the wintertime. I get to find new jackets. I get to find new long sleeve shirts. I get to up the whole game. So now, with the mask, I can get into a whole mask game. If I want a mask to match my Speedo, I'm in it.
You see this? I just tell people, I bling it out. You know what I'm saying?
You make it look good.
We throw diamonds on everything.
You make it look good. And the issue with masks is also people think that you wear them, and I want to talk about the protests coming up. And I want to talk about, because school is a big deal, and I think that there's a picture that most people aren't looking at that makes it an issue. But the issue with masks is people. To me, they can be. If I were to say my obvious thought is they can be more dangerous than not wearing a mask, because yes, sneezing and whatever, but this technically is more of a protection than a mask in that case. And what you do with the mask is you touch your face and you adjust it. If you're at a protest, you feel overconfident and you're doing everything with your hands. And then people use the comment about surgeons. Have you ever seen a surgeon, Curtis, touch their mask?
Yes, and then they
or they have to sanitize immediately, or they have an assistant do it. So don't use the surgeon analogy either. Ultimately, just do your best to wear a mask because it makes people feel good. If you look at the WHO, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, but also it does stop an amount of water droplets. That's the biggest thing. If they can slow that down, right, it stops some, not all. There's no 100% unless you have like a gas mask or something that's next level. But the point of it is if it can stop some, that's less that's in the air. That's just like what they have these the carbon scrubbers in all the pollution. They don't stop everything, but they stop a lot, right? Yeah. It's kind of like that. If you look at it, like the air would be way worse if we didn't have those scrubbers, but the air still ain't perfect because it's getting out. So the biggest thing is, like you said, Anthony, just wear. And again, you're only wearing it where? In somebody's store, somebody's restaurant, and somewhere else that you don't own. So if you want to be free, you can do whatever you want at home. Like, I ain't wearing no mask at home. I ain't never wear a mask at home.
Yeah, I don't think most people do. But like what Alex just said, we're not discussing COVID we're getting our vents out, but we're discussing it for the purpose of how to possibly have people agree more and just chill. It's essentially a chill out, like what kind of compromises we can make. And if it is wearing a mask, and yes, Some people are going to say it's more dangerous, whatever. It's not going to hurt to wear it on occasion in this typical area. And ultimately, if the WHO and CDC are not placing it on the top of the importance list, but our country is, our media is, that there's probably a reason behind that to try to divide us. So if it's trying to divide us, just compromise. Wear a mask a little here and there. Do what they tell you to do. Respect a private business who might have been overly watching the news and scared to death that it's going to kill them. We can't affect their choices. So ultimately, the purpose of this is to not talk strictly about COVID. It's talking about how to come together over the issue of COVID. So with that said, I think we move one next step further with COVID, and then we'll get to some other stuff. I do want to address, obviously, there's Cash. I don't know where he is. Cash had a rough day yesterday. Let me pull this down. Let's see. So we hopefully will be doing Breaking the Barriers later tonight. I talked to Patrick today. Somebody asked me where Patrick is. Patrick's good. We're trying to figure out how Breathe America fits in as a group. And Patrick's a great guy. Him and I, again, spoke earlier, and we're just trying to find a way to target the message where it still is part of this whole concept of unity. And as we just saw, somebody hopped on asking like why I'm bringing the group down with talking about COVID. Any news story is going to be divisive. So we just got to find a way to have those conversations. And we with Be the Change, we like to control those conversations and allow people to feed off of what we say in order to have a little bit better understanding of what's going on. But everything's cool with Patrick. We're trying to figure out how all the pages work in together. And also, so good news with Be the Change, and obviously we're growing. Patrick's growing with Breathe America. Streetlights as well as growing, and I will post the volunteer link for everybody. It is ready. I know a couple people have already found it. I hit it on the Be the Change page. But you can now volunteer because we're going to organize all the help we need for the Facebook groups, etc., coming up very soon. So there's some good news there. We are trying to grow again. We're just trying to build that structure. All right. Yeah, Paula, don't worry. Cash is fine. Cash will be, if he wants to tell the story about what happened yesterday, he might. But it's all good. I know he talked a little bit about the pool. But right now he's getting sun, and I've got a light that's essentially giving me the suntan so that I could look a little bit more delicious like Aaron and Curtis. All right, I explained to you guys the story, so I'll let one of you guys start. And you guys obviously know what's going on. Kids having to go back to school or not going back to school. Does anybody want to present that story, and you have the first spin on it?
You got all the stories there. Knock them out.
Who, me?
All right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll try to make this one a little bit quick. So as we know, the schools are supposed to go back in session right now. I'm going to hold off on my thoughts behind it till you guys talk. So school's got to go back in session, and they're saying obviously it's not safe. 1 out of every 4 teachers has an underlying health condition. It's very dangerous. But there is, and even Dr. Fauci has had comments on how dangerous it is for kids to not be around other kids at school, and the importance of finding a way to go back to school. So that's the big issue right now. Curtis, go ahead. What do you think about going back to school?
I mean, I wouldn't send my child back to school because it's not even just about them. It's when they bring it home. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I don't think that you have to go to school to get a great education, because I have a lot of people who told me that they were able to homeschool their children. And another thing is my godkids, my grandmother had 7 children. She adopted 7 children, and they all were homeschooled. And they all graduated a year early. They also, very, very smart, and they didn't have to deal with a lot of the problems that parents don't teach their children that the other children have to deal with. So for me on that side, I don't have children also at the same time. So, I don't really have full weight to weigh in on somebody else's choice. But for me personally, if it was me sending my child to school, I would not. I would find a way to homeschool them until we have a little bit more information on it, to be able to make sure that my child's going to be, well taken care of. And if there's real good, procedures that they have, that are there in place for the children to attend, because it's just like, you do anything. If you don't have procedures, you just put people back in, then you don't really know how to control or do things for students. And I think students really need some type of structure. If they got that together, I would look at sending my children to school. But again, that's even with me making sure my children understand how to conduct themselves, not in a fear way, but in a way that they're protecting themselves and others. And then that way, so they feel that they understand what's going on. Because I feel like parents aren't talking to children about everything, and they don't fully understand a lot of children. This is for all the issues that happen. A lot of kids I've talked to, like they're scared of just things because they're just like, well, either this and that on, what's going on with injustice, but also with COVID. And I think you have to talk to your child. But for me personally, I would not send my child back to school. But at the same time, I don't think not sending your child back and having them homeschool is a problem, because a lot of people are homeschooled every year, and they're very normal, and they're very, very, very smart, and they actually probably graduate faster than kids on average in a school.
Got it. All right, so I'm not gonna go yet, because I'm gonna have a counterpoint to that, and I think I have a way of, when people want to say send the kids back to school, a different way to possibly look at it, that if you want to have the discussion with people, how to possibly have that sense. But there's more that goes into it. So Aaron, go ahead. What's your opinion on it?
I think I have to start with saying kind of what Curtis said. I'm neither a parent nor a teacher. So this is merely an outside perspective on it. If I was a parent or a teacher, I may have a completely different perspective, but I am not. So with that said, I'll start at the top, and I'll start with like the universities and whatnot. For what I've seen for some of the universities, they're creating outdoor classrooms, which I think is a good start. I think if we're paying as much as we pay to go to university, then they should be able to do something with the money to be able to get us back there and to get us learning and experiencing what we've paid for. So when you drop lower into it and you get into the younger age kids, I understand the dilemma of wanting to send your kids back to school. I know when I was in Atlanta, we did some film production for some schools, and we did these marketing style videos for them. And I learned more about these like daycare centers than I ever thought I would learn. But a lot of those places are fairly clean from what I saw. They have machines that like ionize the toys. They like are wiping things down. They're teaching the kids about washing their hands when they're coming inside from playing and before they eat. So I think there's some good habits there, and I think it's a toss up with sending those younger kids back to the school. Kids are dirtballs. I mean,
they're dirty. Yeah, kids are dirty, but they're also not getting sick much from COVID. But they're bringing it back to their parents, which my friends that got COVID got it from the kid going to school. Kids had a little fever for a day and a half. Parents have been, knocked up. Not knocked up. That's how they had the kid. They've been laid up for another way. They've been laid up for 2 weeks. So it is the parents and the teachers.
And then it gets difficult with. I've seen a lot of posts of you can be a working parent or you can be a teacher parent, and that homeschooling and trying to work and doing both of those or balancing those is nearly impossible. And I kind of believe that. I believe that's a very difficult task to do, especially for a single parent. So with the talk of sending kids back to school, it is a very difficult conversation.
Here's an idea, Aaron. I got an idea for you. So this one is, I'm going to do the counterpoint, and then I want to see how you guys react, because this is something that it's interesting, and I've actually commented on some of the posts on Twitter regarding it from very liberal-leaning sources, and I said, as a liberal thought process, it's surprising that this isn't what your thoughts are. Again, it's bleeding into the fear of COVID over what can actually happen to lower socioeconomic families. So Curtis talked about homeschooling. Absolutely, homeschooling's fantastic unless your parent has an 8th grade education at best. And then you look at, well, the schools will provide stuff. And I do know that, I know somebody said in Indy, Comcast, I got this from Victor, because this is one of the posts. Victor Hill, I know, watches the show sometimes. He had a great reply to me. I said, this is dangerous because this is going to provide the catching up. 10 years from now, we're going to talk about it, about the inner city kids or the lower income white kids from rural areas are going to be a year behind because their parents can't teach them at a certain level. Also, a lot of them are fighting to make sure they have a job, and they're fighting to work, and they're fighting to do all these different things. And then they have to try to find a way to also teach their kids with a lack of education. I know some schools are providing tablets and all these different things. What schools are providing that? Wealthy schools are providing that. So again, the wealth inequality gap becomes bigger and bigger. So this should be the more liberal argument behind it, but it's becoming a non-argument. I mean, it really, I don't know why it's not being said more. So I guess in Indianapolis, Comcast sets up, provided free internet for Indianapolis schools to help during the end of the year. President of the Pediatrics Association said if schools cannot meet the CDC guidelines for PPEs, it's not safe for the kids in the hot spots like Florida and Texas. States can't afford enough school supplies for the classrooms, and now they're supposed to purchase PPEs, millions of kids and staff. Right now, the United States of America is printing money. We had an $864 billion deficit last month, in the month of June. If we don't place education at the top of the list of importance right now, I think that that's a scary, scary thought, and it shows how little we care as a country. So ultimately, how are we bringing people together? People are wondering what my end game and my action is this. When you have conversations about protests, and this is where this is spinning into, is we are now 6 weeks after George Floyd's death. There's still certain things going on. We're making sure to allow certain things to happen that are there's no need. Our importance should be right now people going to work and kids going to school, especially since the undereducated or the economic status, the low economic status, are the ones getting hurt the most. With the single parents, the inability to actually teach their kids, they're getting hurt the most. And now these protests that are supposed to be for them are going to be hurting them even more. So I really think this is the point where if you feel as though protests need to stop and things like, I hate to say this, and the fact that we allowed the gay pride parades to happen for a couple days, a couple weekends ago, that had hundreds of thousands of people out for a celebration, not for a protest, is just short-sighted. So if you want to communicate with people on why, on a different aspect, on why maybe you feel as though it's time to focus on what matters, and I'm sorry, that sounded terrible. Focus on the topics of getting kids back to school and making sure people still have their jobs. I think the way to say that protests need to stop and some of these things need to stop is because it's going to be affecting the kids that we're trying to protect. What are your opinions on that?
If it boils down to open the schools or close the schools, and I had to make a choice, I'd say open them. I think that's how it is with a lot of things. I'd rather have the option as a parent and be able to say no, I'm not going to send my kid, than not have the option at all. Mm-hmm. So I think if it came down to black and white, if I had to make a choice, I would say open them and send them. Give them the choice if they want to send them or not. And that way I think it boils down to the parents. I think it boils down to the parents. I think it boils down to the teachers and the administration of that school on what they're gonna do.
Yeah,
you know, there's all this back and forth, and the more that I sit here and I think about it, and there's all this back and forth with all of this, but this stuff isn't going anywhere. There's flu season. You still send your kids to school during flu season. It's that time of year. It's gonna happen, but you kind of have to prepare for it. Feed them healthier foods. You get them the vitamins and the things to help boost their immune system. I mean, you gotta have those choices, and these things aren't going anywhere. I mean, with all the topics that we've talked about over the last few weeks, they're not going anywhere. So now it's how do we deal with them in the most responsible way?
Right.
Well, I will say this. Most parents don't teach at home. A lot of times right now with the virtuals, a lot of teachers virtual and they have a lot of virtual lessons. And my godmother's children who did homeschool, they have virtual classrooms. So they log in onto a laptop computer and they're taught. So most parents don't teach at home. It's homeschool. That's, unless you're like a homeschooler, just like I don't do any, I do my own thing. But most of it is online. Now, what will happen, what we'll say is, well, all the children don't have internet. They don't have laptops or tablets. New York was a part of that when they went all online. But the Department of Education found a way to partner with Apple and T-Mobile to provide iPads. There over 100,000, 170, bunches of iPads and other devices. That money that is there in the Department of Education that is not spent on building and all these other things that are going on could be reallocated, because what people forget, right now the internet is there, and if you have access to it, you have a wealth of information, right?
Right.
And even if you go back to school, you don't have the internet at home, you're only getting information at school. And a lot of things that I will tell people is sometimes teachers aren't the best suited to be able to handle all the students. And if there's like what's been going on, if students are still behind being in school, in class, what means that they're going to be behind if they're at home? And what's happening is, and I look at this as like what you just said, Anthony, of like all the inner city students, their parents don't have high education, and some of that's a general statement that has some truth, but also it's not all true. There's a lot of very smart people that just have it tough to try to find a way to get out.
I want to include technology on that too, not just education.
That's what I'm getting to.
Yeah. It's more than just that. I don't want to say it's just like, oh, they stupid. No, like I don't mean that.
Well, no, but that's the thing. If they don't have technology, even while they're in school, and then like do a book report, research, you can't do it. So then you have to find a way to get to school. So what we're not addressing is the underlying problem of these students don't have devices or the internet. I worked with Microsoft, Fitbit, Ham out in LA in the inner city schools to provide students with phones in service. And I believe it was T-Mobile or somebody. But that's the thing is like when they got it, they're like, oh my gosh, I can get on the internet. I can look up things. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just social media. And that's what people forget is like, we could look at the money that needs to be put into this system for education. Every student should have a device to be able to go home with and work on. All these rich schools do. The reason that these students are behind aren't because they're in school or not in schools, because they're money. And you look at what's deeper in that goes back into what property taxes are spent and where the zones have been drawn, because they have not been fixed. And money is picked up and put certain places. And also where money's allocated in the current budgets. Yeah. And that's something that people don't. And they say, well, send the kids to school, not go to school. Either one is going to be tough on a child. That's what we have to look at. And also parents and money. So we just have to look at, I don't ever just go put them back because of this, because it makes sense. No, we need to put more money in the school, period. Have kids at home with devices and then ease them back into school when it's a better positioned place where people have processes in order to at least mitigate as much. You can't prevent everybody from getting sick, but if we can at least do our best to make sure these students are healthy and have a safe place to learn, then I'm all for putting my kids back in school when I have children, but I don't have any right now.
And load them all up with Oregon Trail so they know life is tough.
Oh, dude, 100%. But that's the thing. I'll tell you this really before. I went from a school that had no technology, and I went to a school that had a lot of technology, right? And a lot of field trips and money. And my learning expanded. And I said, wow, this is crazy. And now that I look back at it, the biggest difference was money. And I was in an inner city smaller school, and I got to Fayette County, and we had moved out and got to Fayette County, and I'm just like, whoa, my parents moved here because of that. It was very expensive to live here, very expensive to be able to get a house and be able to be here. But my parents said, we're going to do all we can to make sure we're here to give my child the best education. But the problem is, why do you have to kill yourself as much as work hard, crazy hard to be able to get a good education, when if you are at home and you have the internet and you have the same learning that everybody else has, you have a better chance of getting a much better even education than you do when you go to a school that doesn't have enough books, doesn't have enough computers, doesn't have internet for everybody, and you don't have good food. And then you just go back into the problem that what's been going on is because these students are still behind and they have been going to school.
Right.
So this is something where I think technology and companies like Apple, Amazon, who are getting all these crazy corporate tax breaks from the new tax system and a lot of this money that is coming in. And I'm a small business owner, so I see the money going to these big businesses from administration that's current right now. And this didn't just happen in this administration, it happened last administration too, in 2008. So
it doesn't matter, Republican or Democrat, they're going to pay big business.
That's what I'm saying.
Matter.
Big businesses are making their big bucks. So they need to step up, and we need to challenge them and say, hey, you're making a lot of money that we're not getting in our country. We need you now to step up and help with the education to continue to build, because we do have this is leading to, and what we have currently is a lack of, qualified workforce. Very, very, very low qualified workforce for technology and STEM. And I see it because my dad is doing something right now with his fraternity, with inner city kids, to get them on Zoom and get them, and Microsoft is trying to do things now to get kids. It's a lot out there. We have to push and get these companies and hold them accountable and say, hey, you're making a lot of money off of us. We want to make sure you're investing back in our country and make sure our children for the next round of people to be ready. So
what can our group do? First off, as Sarah says right here, there is no black and white answer to it because there's so many variables. I think there's a lot of great stuff that we can do as a country moving forward. What we can do as individuals, I think Curtis just said the best thing to do. If you've got time, find a way to volunteer and either do Zoom teachings or whatever it might be. Know how to have the conversations if you feel differently about certain stuff, and tweet and social media post and call out these big companies. I've been to AT&T's headquarters out here in Dallas, and I will tell you, they have a wall that is monitored of every social media post that tags them in it, and they've got a person that responds instantly. American Airlines, the exact same way. They actually see everything, and if people do it enough, and they share it enough, and they tweet it enough, then people like the Apples of the world or Microsofts of the world will go, all right, enough people are saying it, this is going to be a good PR move, let's go ahead and throw $100 million into putting tablets in every school, because then they also become customers for life in that sense too. They like, not all of them, but you know what I mean. There's some positives. So if you want an educated way to do this as a group, just start actually tweeting, start actually posting, do all this stuff. So
I will say 1 second. Where did it go? There was a quote. Somebody left a comment.
Is this the one you want? Amen, Curtis?
No. It was a comment that was talking about the kids going back to school, and they were worried about what's going on with all the division, or so-called division, because again, the media calls it division. These are things that we have to talk about and come together. I don't like the word division because it's the media that's pushing our divisiveness, because these are just 2 points that people have to come together, and it's okay to come together on it. And what she was saying, I think she said something where, and you can post it again if you're the one who posted it. I'm sorry, Aaron or Ian or something. It was that she was worried about the divisiveness or children of race going back to school and they wouldn't be friends anymore. I really want to say to that, the only reason they wouldn't be friends with their friends that they were friends with before is if you as a parent don't address it and say, hey, there has been injustices going on in America since the beginning and before America. That is in the history. That is fact. It still goes on today. But what you teach your child on both black, white, Hispanic, whatever, men and women, because there's sexism too that needs to be addressed, is that you go back to school and you treat everybody with love and respect. And, you know, if your friend is, I don't want to get into names because that can also be kind of low-key racist, but I'll just be honest, or stereotypical, let me say that. But you treat your friends with love and respect.
Tracy and Jane. Let's use James and Michael and Tracy and Jane.
Yeah.
There we go. So if you tell your friend that's black, hey, James, I love you, and I'm going to treat you correctly. Or James tells their friend, you know, Rachel, hey, Rachel, I love you and I want to respect you. And we're friends and we're going to be different than the generations that came before us. And we're not going to stand for anybody getting treated injustices. I can't say it correctly, but we're going to come together and live in unity. And that's the whole point of this with Cash, with Regular Hero, with BetheChange, is you're the parent. If you have a child, you are the one they're going to listen to and take their direction from if you do it correctly with them early. And tell your child why they should treat everybody with respect, why they should not be afraid, or why they shouldn't be sorry for anything. They just should need to be respectful and love each other. And I don't think that should be a problem. I would not hold my kids back for that reason.
So teach them well and let them lead the way.
Oh man.
No? Okay. Kathy.
Okay. Last part real quick. Just to kind of add to what Curtis said is that I think, again, it's great that we're in the moment of all of these situations that are happening. But just like Curtis said, I think at this point we have to kind of have the foresight of the effects of these things. So if kids aren't going to school, what are they missing out on besides the education? They're missing out on the social aspects. They're missing out on whatever else. And I think those are things that we have to consider. And kind of talk about and kind of be aware of. I think parents need to be aware of, because that is more of a conversation, just like Curtis said, that they do need to have moving forward. Not just why am I not at school or what's going on with black and white and red and yellow. It's having those conversations of moving forward. So
yeah,
I just throw that extra point in there.
And it is about it's about a key learning. And the end of this episode, I'm actually going to be ending with a video from Daryl Davis when we wrap this up. And Daryl Davis is a black gentleman that actually infiltrated the KKK. I got sent the article earlier today on the BetheChange page, and it really is about. Did you ever watch that video, Curtis?
Yeah,
it's good. Dude, that's how I'm going to wrap up today.
I saw the documentary. It is so good
because people wonder. They're like, they think everything's falling on deaf ears, and it's not. You're planting a seed. So we're going to end with that 5-minute video, but we've got a little bit left to talk about. Missing a real education system perspective. I have talked to a couple teachers before today's show, but I would love to have a teacher on next episode. I think I'm going to have a buddy of ours that had the whole family had COVID from a kid coming back from school. He might come on and just tell how it reacted. Maybe even Frank if he's feeling better next week. But
is he up? Is he up from the coma?
He was, and now he's back on a ventilator. He had a little setback today. But ultimately, some people are talking about certain things we don't know. And kids across the board, they use this for food. I was on the free lunch program. I understand the importance of the free lunch program. So there is that. I've also volunteered my Facebook page in the very beginning, and I'm going to do it again. And maybe you guys, we got 120 people watching right now. If you can afford to throw in $10 for kids to get food, put it on your Facebook page and just say, hey, if anybody needs help, private message me. I'm not going to tell anybody about it, but if you need a $10 Venmo, $20 Venmo for your kids to eat this week, whatever it might be, that's one way to act and be the change and doesn't take much money, because for kids to get money for food or whatever it might be, or find out where you can make sandwiches. Who knows? Like that one you could look up.
I will say your churches, like my church in Miami, VU Church, churches in Tulsa, churches in LA, New York, Hillsong. I know VU for real has been doing thousands upon tens of thousands of meals for the kids, and churches are stepping up and doing it. So, Regular Hero with my nonprofit, we started something called the Gratitude Tour. We're feeding, doctors and nurses who can't get out of the hospital right now, because Florida is packed right now. With it's ridiculous. So in Houston too. So these are ways that you can find groups to donate to that are going to feed the students, feed the workers. But again, students are getting fed in some of these locations. So just do a little research on your own city and see where it is. I don't ever suggest you go out right now and just go volunteer. Yeah. It's great. But if you can donate to a group that is getting the food there, do it. And that you don't $10, it goes a long way. I'm getting 5 meals with $10. 5 meals with $10. And these aren't just like, a Lunchable. No, this is like top notch, like real burger, real vegetables and like black beans and rice. I want the food real food too. So really check it out, because it can make a big difference.
It's not paleo.
I know it's not paleo. Hey, bro, it's food.
I want to end this topic, but Lynn, I have a question for you. And if I see it in the box, if you can put it, the kids get kids get free food. You're specifically talking about your county of Monterey. Is that all of California? Because I can't imagine, and I could be wrong, the inner city schools having the same technology, like the providing tablets and Wi-Fi. I feel like that might be, I don't know, I think Curtis might be looking it up. But if that is the case, then I will take back any statement I've ever said about California's deficit and the way they handle their budget, because that's coming in clutch right now. So, all right. The next thing I want to talk about...
They do spend a lot of money, I will say, on education in California.
They spend a lot of money on everything in California.
A lot of people.
Let's see. Do you realize that their GDP, by the way, is the 5th highest in like the world? I believe it's 4th. Yeah. It's a state.
But I could get into why Puerto Rico can export their own sugarcane, because California has a deal with the U.S. government that not allows anybody else to sell it. But I won't go further because there's a lot that goes into that whole.
Speaking of Curtis's knowledge, after this episode, we've got his books that he's told me to post, which I'll be throwing up on the page, and I'm still waiting for Cash to send me which books he reads that he wanted everybody to read. So we'll get.
And listen, this is again why we do this show, because this information that Curtis and Anthony have, this is not stuff that I will look up. I won't. I honestly will not. But I can talk to them and know that they have this kind of information and ask them more about it. So get you some good friends. That's the point of what I'm saying.
Or move to areas of California that do stuff like that. All right, so real quick, let's really quick shift over to let's go. So part of this is a continuation. I do firmly believe that protesting has to stop, and the reason is, let's go to this real quick. Let's hope this works. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this up. So if you guys heard, there was a shooting in Detroit this last week. The shooting in Detroit was a police officer shooting a man at point blank range that caused protest. We got to stop protesting without actually looking into things. Have you guys actually seen the footage on this yet, Curtis or Aaron?
I've not.
The shooting. Okay, I'm going to really quick bring it up. And for anybody now, if you haven't heard it or seen it and you just assume one way or the other, this will give you the opportunity to have a little bit of knowledge on the actual shooting. Let's pray that this works. All right, so here's where it is on the page. This is on the Detroit Free Press. I'm going to throw it up as the main screen. Of course, I think I did the one thing that I forgot, which actually I don't think there is sound. I think I'm just going to talk through it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play real fast. So as you can see, this gentleman is, as I hit play and it doesn't move. Come on. You can do it.
Yeah, are you going to show the whole video?
No, I'm just showing just this little bit right here. Of course it's not working. Fantastic. Anyways, as you can see this guy here, I'm going to paint a diagram. So I'm going to use a little thing. This guy right here, this guy's getting arrested. This guy reaches in his pocket, and there's a bunch of cops converging. Oh, there we go. Here it comes. He reaches for something and grabbed a gun and shot it directly at an officer 3 feet away. First off, he's got the worst aim in the history of shooting. And he was shot immediately following by all the police officers. So you can see right there, very simply, that gentleman pulled out a gun, and here it is. So that's not even fully making news, which is scary. My mom's actually in Detroit right now, has not even heard about it. This happened on July 10th, I believe. And there was protests that happened in Detroit. They're trying to muffle these because these were those pointless protests that people should be speaking to their own community about. In a time of a pandemic and a time of mass protests anyways, the fact that this person, that I don't even want to say his name, I'm going to look at it and not even say it, 20-year-old man, he was fatally shot by police, is garnering attention after shooting at a police officer from 4 feet away is mind-boggling. He shot according to Randy, 4 bullets by him, and I think that's what I read as well. 4 by him, 4 by 3 officers, 8 shots total. He was killed on site, and there was protest because people said he should not have been killed. Wait until there's body camera footage. It drives me absolutely nuts. This is the point where we're talking about kids going back to school and you're choosing to protest over somebody that pulled the gun out and tried to shoot directly at a police officer 3 feet away. And has a bad enough shot at the time that he didn't kill the police officer.
Well, praise the Lord, he didn't kill the police officer.
Yes,
and
agreed.
I 100% don't think anybody should be marching for that because that was to me, I don't ever say any killing is justified, but that was a justified, viable response of, I'm trying to make sure you don't hurt another person or police officer. Mm-hmm. And they had to stop the threat. At that moment, they had to do what they had to do, and I don't see a problem with that. And I don't think that people should protest over that. You can protest over things that I don't want to say matter, but things that are pressing, right? Injustice and different things. That had no injustice going on there when the guy pulled his gun out and shot at a police officer. There's no way you can call that injustice or anywhere close to it. But at the same time, there's no way to just say, oh, well, look at that. Now discount everything else, because there is a lot of other evidence. But what I don't want people to do is to go out there and protest over that. That is not what you protest. You protest over keeping our police safe. Yeah, go protest on that and saying, hey, let's do a better job in our community to make sure these people are safe. The police are safe, because that's why police have to go through a lot, right? And I don't ever discount a police person's, job or their experience, because I have had a lot of bad run-ins or a lot of other black people. No, at the end of the day, their job is tough. It's not hard. It's not easy. And, that kind of stuff should not be tolerated.
All right. I'm glad we're in agreement on that one. I like it.
Well, there's no way. There's no reason I wouldn't.
I know.
That's common
it's
sense.
just so.
Literally.
All right. Question though, how do you and Aaron, maybe you could answer this. Like, I even now we talk about having the uncomfortable conversations. That's why we started this. To me, this is and Randy even says in the box that DPD, they released the body cam footage. The news isn't going to put this, the local news will put it on, but the national news will just play this as another police shooting of a black man. How do we create a bigger conversation to the community to avoid that kind of protesting? Because now the same type thing happens. The people that are on the right are going, oh my God, I can't believe they're protesting. How do we have this conversation in different communities than I'm from, and then you guys are from, but they might look more like you, or they might look like, actually that's a lie, they might look like me that just want to protest every police shooting that there is, because they are,
they have time.
Right, they have time, and they're
they have money.
So what do we do, Aaron? You got any ideas? You got any freaking ideas?
Got a suit on. Set
no, I don't. I wish I'd do it. It's such a conflict, because you played that video and I immediately jumped into Cash's talk from the other week of when he saw the officers and he arresting the guy or dealing with the guy, and he approached them. Like, you now have two completely opposite scenarios. You have someone like Cash that's in approaching or there to help. And we've seen a lot of those videos kind of surfacing now of like citizens and bystanders helping the police officers. But then you also have this type of situation where you have someone else that's involved, that's not incarcerated, that's not locked down, that's just on the premises. And it's just such a catch-22. It's such a difficult situation, because you're going to have the bottom of the barrel and the top of the barrel type of people all the time. And it's just, it's disheartening. It really is. And
do you think avoiding national news, if we were to give one suggestion to people, yeah, and Sarah says, I wouldn't just say it's people on the right asking why would you protest that. It's logical people in general. But we have become, there's a split in conversation, unfortunately, a lot. So I guess, yeah, it's more logical people say that. Would you say, because I mean, it's hard to stop watching the news smut, the CNNs and the Fox, because we're programmed for drama. It's a full drama episode, but then unfortunately that drama is real that we're watching. It's actually happening, even in small sects and its outliers. So how do this one's a loss on me, and it's including the next story with the girl whose dad who died. I honestly don't know. I don't know the answer to this one, but I want to bring it up because I think it's important. Nobody.
There's got.
I mean, this is the biggest thing, right? And it's something that. What was the police officer's name that he came on?
Kevin.
Kevin, right?
Yeah.
He hit it home. He goes, "Why are they doing these things?" Right? And I'm not questioning why the young man pulled the gun out and thought it was smart to pull the gun out and shoot it at a police officer. Right? Something had to have been going on in his mind. There's some mental problem issues, something going on, right? There's no excuse for it. Don't take that as an excuse, but there's something going on, right? And Then you have people that go out and protest over this before they see the information or even after they see the video. Something's going on and something's got to be wrong, because I'm a person that is all for, restructuring, refunding the police, refunding education, all these different things. There's a lot of problems, right? Equity, not just equality. And I could never see it with my values and morals, how I was raised, to go protest over that shooting right there. Right, there's something that you have, because, and then what happens is we can't change people's opinion. Right, that's the thing we always get. Let's change this person's opinion. We have to come at it as, okay, with the people around me, let me see why they're thinking this way. Because once you start down people, and you have to realize if they're not, and this is where it gets to, if they're not going to listen to you, they're not going to listen to regardless. They're going to listen to CNN or Fox News or whatever. Unfortunately, they're not going to look at the bigger picture. And when you sit your child down and you say, hey, this happened, but this was wrong. That's why this happened. I would take race out of it. Well, why did this guy get shot? Because he pulled a gun on the police officers and it was not right. And so they had to defend themselves. Right. That's how I look at it. And then when you have a problem of George Floyd, it's like, that was wrong. The man was, down on the ground. He was supposed to be apprehended. They're supposed to do their job, and he had his knee on his neck, and that is wrong. You should never put your knee on anybody's neck, right? And we do know there's more injustice, and I would encourage people to watch the show, the documentary, Crime and Punishment. It's actually very powerful, by the police officer Edwin Raymond. It also has Manuel Gomez, Sandy Gonzalez, and Rukia. I can't say that last name. I'm sorry. But this shows that there is some injustice in that system. But at the same time, as a parent, you just teach your children to see love and to see like, yo, you got to understand that this is right and this is wrong, no matter what the color is. So when you know what right and wrong is, no matter what the color, I hate when people are like, well, this and that, or this and that, or what's right is if you get pulled over, you stop. You do what you need to do. What's wrong is if you get pulled over for no reason, profiling, whatever, that's the wrong. But what's also right is you stop, and if you do something wrong, you stop, you move, you do what they need to say. And what also is wrong is pulling a gun out of a police officer and shooting at them or doing anything to endanger their lives because they just want to do their job most and go home to their family safe and not affected, not dead or injured. And so that's how I look at it. That's what people fail to realize. And it's so simple. And like you're saying, Anthony, you should not be protesting for that young man getting killed because he pulled a gun out on a police officer. And if somebody pulled a gun out on me and I have my gun on me and you pull a gun out and you shoot at me, I'm unfortunately, I'm shooting back. It's self-defense.
And you just shoot for your partner. You're going to actually get involved.
I am going to make sure whoever's with me is safe. I'm safe, right? But I don't go looking for that. But again, be right or wrong. That's super simple. But I think that's super simple. Some people don't.
So, Kristen, I want to bring up this news story because it is horrible. But again, this is now a media spin that is a little bit different. So I'm assuming most people that have heard this story about the girl who got shot for saying all lives matter, what have we come to as a nation, is what Kristen said. So the actual story is, it's ridiculous, it's terrible, it's scary, but this has been spun by both sides of the media because it creates this whole like us against them, all lives matter against Black Lives Matter. It pits the exact argument they want. It was actually two groups. It was a rough group and also semi-rough group. And a comment was said, two groups had a fight. She never said all lives matter. There's no evidence that she said all lives matter. Somebody in the group, when they were doing their like piss off, because I guess they all showed that they had guns or something. I don't know. They were both armed. So both sides left. It was two groups of people. So I want to just make sure we educate everybody on the actual situation. That's what Truth Will Set You Free is. They separated. They all thought it was all said and good. One group said Black Lives Matter. The other group said all lives matter. And they were just fighting. They separated. They thought it was over. They passed an underpass. I believe that was in Indy. And she just so happened to be the one that got shot. It had nothing, like, it had to do with two groups that were in vehement disagreement, which is obvious. But the way that I heard it on the media was essentially a group was fighting. They're going, screw you. Somebody said Black Lives Matter. Somebody goes, all lives matter. And they pulled out a gun and shot her in the head. That's not what happened. So I do want to de-escalate the situation. It's severe in its sense that somebody got murdered, but it was not a East Side, West Side type situation. So now you do know that exactly what happened in the story. And I think they're doing the whole do not tell.
There is too that there are a couple news stories, and I'm trying to, I don't want to just throw this out there. Allegedly, somebody in their group used the N-word or said the N-word to somebody.
That's how it supposedly started,
And that is where that started. And again, I don't agree with anybody getting shot over any kind of argument at all. Right? I don't think anybody should get shot for using the N-word. If you call me an N-word, that's wrong. Right? But you don't deserve to die. I mean, if you're in my face and you call me that and you sling, I'm going to do what I need to do to protect myself.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
and they were just shooting as a group. They're shooting in a group.
And they both had guns, and it's like I'm sure they. And again, I don't want to speculate because I'll be going like I'm doing. I'm sure they had this, and I'm sure Anthony. They probably liked this, and they probably did that with the gun. No, we don't know all the facts.
He did the KKK symbol. I saw him do it with his hands. I know he did.
He had a swastika, and he yelled "All Jews die" or something stupid.
And I'm pretty sure they were Hispanic too, the ones that got shot. So whatever. It's a terrible situation. It's bad people killing bad people. It's not friggin' Black Lives Matter against All Lives Matter. It's just phrasing that they're using off the television. It's a horrible situation. Yeah. And you know what's funny when you say the N-word, like if they said the N-word, and it'll go to the very end of this episode, which we're almost at, is, again, if somebody yells the N-word, I know that it's the worst thing you could possibly hear, but if you react the way they want you to react, it fuels that racist fire. It fuels that anger and division. Where if you react with, I'm sorry, brother, like, I know you may feel that way about me. Holy crap. And I know I can't speak for how that would feel. I know that that's not coming, but like that is stopping power. Like if people talk about guns as stopping power, that is stopping power against hate, is to meet that kind of level of hate and with love. And it takes time. And the video we're going to show at the very end will show you that there's a phrasing with cement, and it breaks the cement over time.
I will say this: the N-word is powerful because not just the word, right? Not just you're ugly or whatever. There's hundreds of years of systemic racism and pressure and injustice that goes into that word, right? That was not a term that was made as a way to fire back at somebody. That was not a term that's like, oh, the B word that's now been whatever. That's not a term that was ever that really has any equal to somebody that is calling a black person that, right? A black person can call a white person a lot of names, but none of those names really have as much of effect as the N-word to a black person, because black people never, in like the entire part of America, of a lot of the history, it did not have that same type of pressure, death, and injustice towards white people that black people have endured from white people in the past, not current white people. And a lot of people don't understand the reason and the beginning of that word. I really think I would love for people not to even use that word. Don't if you're not black, don't go to a black person. Well, another black person says it. That you're just trying to tell me that you really want to say it and you really want to feel like, no, you should not want to say it. Like me as a man, I'm not going to call a woman the B word, not because you call your girls the B word. No, I'm not going to call you that because it's not right.
I saw a super interesting, one of the very first things after George Floyd died was this big dude.
Black people.
What? Black people. My mom always used to say blacks, and I was like, it sounds funny, and now that's all they say. But yeah, so why don't black people quit using it? So I'm going to use a microaggression term, but it was a dude that came out talking about why the N-word should be used. That was a large, muscular, well-spoken African-American man. So I used the word well-spoken beforehand, and it's apparently something I'm not allowed to do anymore. But
why?
But this is the reason. This is the reason I'm going to say well-spoken, because he is an advocate for the N-word, and I think that's the dichotomy, not the color of his skin. So he talked about the fact that it was a terminology given them by hateful people, and if the choice is his to use it because it reclaims power back from the slave owner, however many hundred years ago. Again, just his opinion, and that's why he is. I know some people, a lot of black people, including I think you, Curtis, hate. I'm assuming Aaron as well, don't like when anybody uses the N-word across the board. So,
No.
but he had a reason for it, and you know what? That's his own truth, and we'll go ahead and leave that there.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, nobody that's not black to me, or nobody ever can use it to me. Nobody will ever address me as the N-word, and I won't allow them to, no matter what color they are. But if I hear somebody who is not black use it, I instantly get a little more on edge because I go, why are you using this word? What are you? Because you don't have a term of endearment with it. You never have and never will, because you're not, that if that's as an excuse for other black people to use it. As a person who's not black will never have a term to use it as endearment towards another black person.
Right, I agree. But again, I don't want to fight his truth.
No, that's why I said.
Yeah.
That's why I said for him.
Yeah.
I just said any other person that's not black. For me, I'm like, whoa, because I don't like it here, and I always address the young men that say it, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, don't call me that. Like, well, do you know what it's from? But I hear other people who aren't black say it. Latinos, white, does not matter to me. I'm like, yo, that is not a term you should be using. We should be going past it. And then when they use that term, or they use a question, why do black people use it? You're not listening, and that shows me that you're not at that level of saying, okay, I need to see that this is not hindering me.
Right.
Because I can't say something because it's wrong. I shouldn't feel bad. I shouldn't feel like I'm being oppressed because I can't. If
we're putting historical statues as a out of sight, out of mind, I think we should also probably put the N-word out of sight, out of mind.
I'm right there with you.
I know, it's the same. To me, that's the same concept. And again, part of what we're doing on this show is to give you ideas on how to have a conversation that doesn't offend people. So, let's see. Last couple things really quick, because Curtis has to go. He's got a hard out in a couple minutes, so we want to talk a little bit. Honestly, this story just sucks, so I don't really want to give much to it, except for I personally want to think that in McAllen, the girl whose father, the Blue Lives Matter post, this girl's father passed away. He was a cop that got ambushed. And she posted on her social media, "You were an amazing man, and anyone who ever came across you knew that. I miss you so much. You died doing what you love most. You died a hero. I love you, Daddy. See you soon. # Blue Lives Matter." Which somehow garnered a couple positive comments, which you would expect, and then somehow garnered, "Being a cop is a choice. Laugh my ass off. The last time I checked, blue people don't exist. Maybe educate yourself." That is something that's said, and that was a common response to a girl who just lost her father.
Yeah, that's horrible.
God, it's not even a story that we really need to chat much about. It's more of a, this is the mentality we're up against in order to have these conversations. And the big conversation that I have, and why I don't like using all lives matter, is because it's a divisive statement. Because it, as people say, it doesn't have to do with what we're looking at as a country right now. However, this girl's father was a cop, died in the line of duty. She is dealing with a blue life, and yes, we can call it a blue life, mattering to her in that moment. And honestly, if I were to say the most divisive thing I'm going to say is, right now, if I were to do a hashtag, it wouldn't be all lives matter. It would either be Black Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter. Because right now, they are in hell. They're getting cut. They're quitting. They're retiring. That's black cops, white cops, Hispanic cops.
But I will say, and this is from the police officer. It was actually from I sent it to y'all. I was watching church, on Sunday. Oh no, the pastor up in
Preach.
Hillsong interviewed a police officer that was black, 12 years on the job. He's a lieutenant, and he was talking about how he got so much hate for speaking out, right? And what he said now with George Floyd dying and all these things happening was that he could not believe how many officers now have felt okay to speak out and empowered, because he said that fraternity is so strong. Now, he's only speaking for New York NYPD. He has an entire documentary out about it, which is unbiased, because he even challenges himself, which I like. But going back to that story, she should never have anybody come on her page and mess with her for saying Blue Lives Matter for her dad who died in the line of duty, that was, doing it the correct way. And I don't have any sympathy for anybody coming after her saying that. Like, let this woman mourn somebody who died in her family that's close to her. That's a life. If that's the life that matters, it should matter to everybody at the same time. So I don't feel like
Somebody said,
people coming
"I'm
in.
so sorry for your loss, but you didn't have to use a racist hashtag." And Curtis, you and I have had long discussions on the term racist because we
That's not
it's-
racist.
Yeah, I know. We know this. But and I think we save that for another episode because I know you and I have had the discussion because you watched that older woman expert talk about racism and how to kind of deprogram and I don't fully agree with it, but I listened to it and there were some interesting points. So maybe we talk about that on another episode. We'll get some learning. Aaron, between this, you and I will wrap up with the quick conversation on defunding. But before we have Curtis say goodbye, what are your thoughts on just how to help situations in news like this? How can we present this in a better way?
I don't even have and it, like, I laugh because it's just so absurd,
Ignorant. Yeah.
like, and that and I the only way for me to diffuse something like this when I hear it is through humor. It really is. And I just think of, like, if I was a vigilante, who would I be? Like, I would be the throat puncher. Like, that would be my superhero person character. And when I saw posts like this, I would use my tech team to just figure out how to find these people and punch them in the throat. But that's vigilante me. That's not me. So it just poses the question of, why would you say something like that? Are you saying it because you want to be right? Because you think you're right? And is that a win? Is that a win for you? Does that make you feel proud? What feeling does that give you? Or does that deflect in you to make you feel good about saying something like that?
What if we looked at it like this, Aaron? They've been programmed to think that that's a racist statement. So what if we do the same thing so we double back, we double it the other way. And then when we see posts like that, before the girl ended up taking it down. But as a group, we've got the 115 people here. What if those people, when they see posts like that, meet them with, instead of like, don't be ignorant. Because right now I just said it. I was like, that person's ignorant. They're ignorant. That's not going to help them change their mind. What if we met it with, this is a girl's life, and I'm sorry that you might have had something that's happened, and just, you got to realize that there's something done here, and maybe again, continue and actively. I know a lot of people are bored out of their damn mind right now. Actively find if you see these things that bother you, if it bothers you, it bothers other people, comment on it, but comment in a different way than you would have 2 months ago. Comment it in a way where you meet that anger and hate, because that's just, to me, that's just as hateful as the N-word in a very
100%.
different way.
Oh, 100%.
It's two incredibly bad wrongs. So if empowering you guys to just start and you know what, you're not going to get through. It's gonna suck. But you might start getting a little bit of plant in there where maybe 4 years down the road, they look back at their old posts and how they got involved in that and immortalized on social media for being an asshole, and they go, man, I'm glad I changed. And it's going to be because of little itty bitty things like that. And this is my shameless plug for the show, is hopefully we have this kind of conversation and sharing it, because we are trying to teach people how to, and we're not perfect, but trying to teach people how to have a slightly better approach to conversations on social media while we do things like with Regular Hero and with Streetlights to actually build real change. Our other version of change is how to create conversation. Curtis has to go. Curtis, go ahead and do your goodbye, and then Aaron and I will wrap up with a defunding police conversation and that video.
Just push. Can we push the defund to next week?
Yeah, we could do that. We could talk more about it. Yeah.
Push it to next week.
All right, Curtis, you go ahead and say your goodbye. Aaron, you say your goodbye, and then we're going to end with that video of it's a 5-minute video from Daryl Davis infiltrating the KKK. So, all right, go for it.
I'll say this to everybody watching and people who will watch this later. We can't change people's mind alone, right? We can't change it. And this is from a movie that I love. I watch it all the time. I look at it in a way of how I live my life, but also how I do my business, right? The movie Inception, I think, is the perfect explanation of how we can't change somebody's mind by just telling them what to do. There has to be a seed planted for that thought to grow. I'm not pumping the movie. You can watch it if you want to watch. It's very confusing, but life is very confusing because you don't know how many layers we have to go deep to get to where that seed can be planted and then grow, right? And so what I'll say to people is just plant the seed, right? We are not the people who are going to convert the people. We are just people that are going to connect people. And you all that are watching this love the truth. I hope we love the truth, and we have our own. We don't agree on everything. We have our own distances. But at the end of the day, if we plant the seed, that is all that we are called to do. Plant the seed of love. Plant that seed of conviction in that person by not trying to convict them or convince them, but just to connect them to a different narrative. And I think if you share this, what we're doing, I could care less. That's why I didn't put my hashtag up and all my stuff up the first couple shows, because I don't care. Like, you can follow me or not follow me. If you have sent me a Facebook message, I'm sorry. I don't always check it because, like Anthony says, like, I try not to be on social media like crazy. And what I tell you to do is start looking at your own stories more than you look at others. If you look at your own story, you can actually see, am I actually telling my story the way it should be told? And then I think that's, if you do that, Seeds of Planet, you're telling your own story, you're telling the right story, people are going to see that, and it will affect others. And everybody in this, on this chat, everybody in this video have the same amount of power to help affect change, and they can be the change.
Love it. All right, Curtis, I appreciate it. Go do
Love
what you got to
y'all.
do. You're 4 minutes late. Take it easy. Aaron.
Yes, I'm going to church.
Going to church. All right.
Virtual.
Of course it
See y'all.
is. All right, later, brother. Aaron, what's up?
Oh man, it's a good episode. Some tough conversations. You know, so definitely some tough conversations that we had, and it's tough for me too because a lot of the conversations that we have, I don't have any close degrees of separation, if you will, to these. I don't know too many teachers. I don't know too many police officers. I don't know too many parents that are in like close proximity to me. So it's tough to dive into these topics and to discuss them when they're in my circle of concern, but not in my circle of influence. They're not directly impacting me.
What I like when you're on the show, by the way, as I'm interrupting you close, is the fact that you don't have as much of the back knowledge on some of this stuff, so you get to react from a very human perspective. You get to actually see how you feel from when you hear perspectives, and Curtis and I don't always agree, and you see stuff, and I see you always watching the comments on the side. So I love your perspective on how you get to have the true human emotion, unprepared, and actually thinking through it as you process the information. And that's why I appreciate how you have the conversation on this show.
Yeah, and I like to do it that way, which is why, like, you send the emails and I kind of look over them a little bit about what we're going to talk about, but I don't dive too deep into them because I do like to have that reaction, because at its core and to do what I do, to kind of tie it all together, it really comes back to what Curtis says. It's about the roots of the situation and the seeds that we're planting. It's in a book that I'm reading right now. It's about so many people forget to take care of the roots, and they only care about the fruit, the product that's coming off of the tree. But if the roots get rotted and you're not taking care of the roots, you're not going to get those fruits. Yeah. Or you're going to get bad fruits. You can't do anything with that.
It rhymes too.
Yeah. So it comes back to being able to have these conversations to flush it out. And that's another reason I love doing the show. And I say it all the time, is that it just allows me to get these emotions out. It allows me to hear these different opinions and to see people involved in our conversations and talking and leaving their comments because it's an interactive process, and we don't have that right now. We don't have that openness, and it really is a relief to be able to do what we're doing. So just like in every episode, I thank you guys so much for tuning in to the show and leaving your comments and interacting with us. And the last thing that I'll say is Marilyn Cricket Whipple. That's not a real name. It's not. There's no way. There's no way that's a real name. I'll never believe it.
Thank you very much, Aaron. I'm going to go and wrap us up. Again, everybody sticking around, know that I'm going to end on a video with Daryl Davis. It's about 5 minutes long, and it's the whole concept of what we do here at Be The Change. Aaron, thank you. You can stay backstage, and I'll see you in just a little bit. We could chit-chat. All right, guys, thank you so much for being on this episode. Sorry Cash didn't make it. He actually just texted me. He just got back from the pool. Hopefully we'll do a Breaking the Barriers this evening. That will be the goal. To continue that conversation and maybe have some more stuff about Black Lives Matter with some of the conversations that are going on now. Ultimately, this is what I'm taking from this episode and what I'm taking from all the news that we've seen, whether it be COVID or people getting shot or police officer shootings or whatever it might be, is the extremes, as we say, are ruining the movement. I've actually become more pro Black Lives Matter in the last 2 months than I ever thought that I would be. Why? Because I see that it's pointing out these glaring issues in our society, and much the same as the Black Panthers. And I've had part of it is I've had some conversations with people that I've met from this show that have had some conversations that were opposing viewpoints. And it allows us to change our thought process. And I realized that just like the Black Panthers were started with great intentions. And then it was infiltrated with hate groups that ended up taking over, much the same as Black Lives Matter could be, to me personally, one of the most corrupt organizations in our country. But is that on purpose? That's on the purpose of the people in power, and all that does is divide us. But Black Lives Matter is a movement that is important to all of us. They as a race, Black people have been treated unfairly for hundreds of years, and as much as we as white people have seen it as, oh, they've gotten all these different free things over the last 40 years, they really haven't. They've been given teases, and they've been giving things that cause us to be in the situation we are in right now, which is where Black lives do matter. But we can't let the shittiness of the movement affect our need for empathy and love on people and our ability to talk to people. Because we're going to have these hard conversations. We're going to have them with the extremes, and we're going to have to try to bring people towards the center. And it's not going to happen in one conversation. And I want to make sure I say this on every episode, because this is the most important thing. It's two-headed monster. Have the uncomfortable conversations, because those are important. Second, you can't meet emotion with logic. I say it every episode, and I say it all the time in conversation. You cannot meet empathy with logic, because you're fighting with too hard of a surface. And in the video I'm about to play, it talks about cement, and over time that cemented mindsets, they crack, they change, they open, where you can actually plant things in them. The seed goes in, and it takes time to plant. It takes over and over watering. It takes over and over conversations. It takes having an open mind. So have an open mind. Don't feel daunted when you have these hard conversations. And unite, don't fight. Be the change you wish to see in the world. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for joining us. Continue to share. We're going to be posting up Curtis's books, hopefully Cash's books, as well as Aaron's got some shows that he's got coming up, which we totally forgot to talk about. But Aaron's going to post some of those, what's coming up this week. He's got a whole fun show on hosting and emceeing, and yeah, that's going to be really fun. So we're going to do the live shot, and then it's going to be edited. So you make sure to stay tuned for that, all on the Be The Change Network. And we are going to end with this video, if I could find it correctly this time. Share the audio so I don't make that mistake. And we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. Thank you guys for joining us here with Be The Change. I'll see you guys soon. Or maybe it'll take a second to play like the other one did. Trust me, it's good. You just got to wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it.
You know, I rather like Roger Kelly. She like jumped almost in the car, hit her head on the ceiling. She said, well, he doesn't like you. I said, yeah, I know. Now understand something. I did not respect what Mr. Kelly had to say. However, I am going to keep in contact with him. I would call him when I had to play a gig up in Frederick, Maryland, or that county. Say, hey man, I'm playing, wherever. Come on out. He'd come. He'd bring the Nighthawk, and he'd come down to my house, and the Nighthawk would sit on my couch next to him. Sometimes the Nighthawk would get bored and pull out his gun and just like twirl it on his finger while Mr. Kelly and I are talking. Now, here's a man who did not like me, who felt that he was superior to me, but yet he would sit at my dining room table and eat with me. Or we would go out and have lunch. Or dinner. So this went on for a couple of years. By the end of a couple of years, he was coming down to my house by himself, no Nighthawk. He trusted me that much. He began inviting me to his house. I'd go to his house, I would see his Klan den, where he would have his Klan meetings, things like that. I picked some more notes from my book. Then he began.
Well, that's a bummer. Hopefully we'll be able to play it. Either way, I'm going to go ahead and put the goal cast up for you guys to actually see. It's got a really great end to it. It's unfortunate that it's not working. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that'll be it. I'm going to go ahead and put I'll put the link in it. You'll enjoy it. Thank you guys for joining us with Truth Will Set You Free.